This space worked out perfect.
My mouth, cuss.
That's okay. Yeah, no, you can cuss on this one because I can edit and I'll take clips of it and I'll go to the radio show.
Now, I ain't gonna just
No, I got you.
But when I get going, sometimes like this shit. Oh.
So y'all, welcome to the Alumni Corner with Coach Tia. I am here with a special guest, a good friend of mine, neighbor, Gary Sherrod. He's probably more like a big brother, big cousin. But I have him here as we're going to talk about the situation of just understanding more of the backstory of people and alumni's experience as players and now as alumni and ways that we can be better as far as helping the youth and developing a better program versus the one that we've seen and some of the feedback we've been hearing in like recent news. So just to get started, my first question to you is just tell us who you are, what year did you graduate, and what sports did you play?
How y'all doing? I'm Gary Sherrod, born and raised in Springfield, Tennessee. I graduated class of 1998 from Springfield High School. I'm born and raised a baseball guy. I played City League basketball, City League football. No, I didn't play football. That's a lie. I played baseball, City League, and high school, 4 years of high school baseball in Springfield High School.
Okay. So tell us a little bit, like if you could talk about your City League experience. Tell us about what was that like for you?
It was fun. City League was a lot different then than it is now because it was, to me, it was more about the community. Like everybody played. Like everybody played back in the day. Now the money's kind of got involved with it, and there's so much AAU and travel and all of this stuff. Sometimes you don't get to play with your neighbor because he's on this travel team and he's on that travel team. It wasn't that way in the 80s. Like we played, whoever got picked, and you rolled out there and every kid had to play. So there wasn't a, well, this kid will get in the last inning. Every kid has to play, has to get at bats. So the landscape of the game has changed a lot. But my experience was, it was great. My dad coached me for years, but he only started coaching because my first year coach was a bad coach. I mean, there's no way to, he was bad at what he was doing. He had kids playing out of position. He was just there. He was a body. Now you got to give him credit for, volunteering his time, but he wasn't very good at what he was doing. And he was asking us as kids to do unreasonable stuff at 4 and 5 years old. So that's when my father got involved with coaching. So, like I said, my experience was a little different because I was able to have my father, my roughest critic, be the coach of the team for the majority of my City League days up until I think my 8th grade year of ball when he stepped away.
I definitely had a similar experience. I was like, man, that sounds so familiar. My mom was the same way, like all through City League and even into middle school, and then that's when everything changes, of course. So now that we led up to high school, tell us about the high school experience. What do you feel like maybe was different from the City League with having your father there?
Well, my dad stepped away because I feel like he wanted me to be able to experience that on my own, and he didn't want to be that filter anymore. So he would watch games from a distance. Sometimes he would pull in the parking lot and just watch from his car. And he felt like I didn't get as much credit as a ball player because he was coaching. So he wanted me going into high school to be able to play. And, if I made whatever all-star games I made, all-star teams, whatever accolades I got, they'll know that I earned them on the field. And it wasn't just because that's Big Shank's son. So that's why he stepped away. So, and I didn't understand that lesson at the time. I was upset. Like my dad had been my coach for, I'm upset about it. Now he was still around. He was still able to help me. But hindsight is 2020. Now I understand why he stepped away. So that once I got to high school, I didn't even try out for the high school team initially because I felt like my middle school experience wasn't good. So when I got to high school, I said, I've got City League I'm going to play. I'm going to play baseball. The coach at the time, Coach Cox, actually. Coach Cox was there still. He came to me and asked me to try out. And I got City League, I'm fine. Like, as long as I can play. Right. I got City League. And when Coach Cox came to me and actually asked me, he said, man, I hear you a heck of a baseball player. And I got a spot for a junior varsity first baseman. Why don't you come out? The only reason I went out. And then when I went home, my dad asked, he said, son, you trying out for baseball? I said, I wasn't, but Coach Cox asked me to today. He said, son, that's your game. I don't know what you doing. And at the time, I was considering playing basketball for Coach Darden because that's what all my buddies were doing. All the homies were playing for Coach Darden. And I was like, you know what? And they were on me. Hey, man, come on, try out basketball. You can do it. Because we were playing together in gym. Like, I had gym with the basketball team. So we were up and down all day. And my dad was one who looked at me and said, son, you're an all right basketball player. You're a good baseball player. Like, you need to be out there. So that's when I tried out for the baseball team and made the team and ended up playing quite a bit of time, even as a JV player. Our starting first baseman, Toby Baptiste, broke his leg. No, Toby Baptiste broke Lee Swearingen's leg. That screwed up the rotation of how. So I was able to play some varsity games as a freshman.
Oh wow!
So I mean, it wasn't many, but it was a fun experience. I don't have a lot of horrible stories of my experience from baseball. And the bad experiences I have came from outside of Springfield. The Greenbriers, some of the teams you played.
Talk about that.
Some of the inadvertent, some of the stuff people say under their breath that as a kid you shouldn't hear. Like, and at 14, 15, you feel like only black kid on the team. I'm gonna stir the pot here. Like, I'm gonna be ostracized from my team and everywhere if I bring this up. Now, this is 94. The landscape is a lot different now. We'll tear that whole thing. We'll tear this up.
I'm here for it.
But in 94, the atmosphere was a little different, like I said, and a lot of those games, like I said, this is the same time that my dad had stepped away from the game. So some of these away games he wasn't at. So some of these fans and stuff would say some little slick stuff that could be interpreted one of two ways, but always when I was on deck, close to the, so some of that stuff, I still have a burning rage about Greenbrier. Like, yeah.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. And I've always heard that, even like talking to my mom, like that was her experience too, yeah. Right? And even thinking about my own experience, and I graduated in 2009. Yeah. And going to Greenbrier, it's like the rivalry is real.
It's still real.
But it's not so much as the sport itself, but like you said, it's coming from like the stands, the outside spectators and things like that. So with that, do you feel like the community plays a major part in the way that the teams are ran?
I think it needs to. I don't know that it does currently. I don't think the city does a good job of saying, hey, we got some talented kids down here playing baseball. Like, hey, the same way they try to get our money, like I shouldn't be going all in, but I don't care.
Go in.
The same way they post signs to say, hey, signups are this time. Hey, signups are this time for this sport between this time, and that's advertising. That's great. Why don't we advertise that these kids are actually playing? Hey, even the little bitty ones. It warmed my heart. 2 weeks ago, they had a tournament for little bitty kids. There was some softball there too, but I'm helping my son's team, so I wasn't familiar with the age group. So I know our age group was 4, 5, and 6, and they did an excellent job running it. It was ran well, and there was so many people, even in the middle, to the tail end, whichever point of the pandemic you think. There were so many people there, smiling, laughing at the ball field. For me, that's what I grew up with. Like, I played at the bottom down here. So at the bottom, it would be packed on a Saturday afternoon to watch. And you didn't have to have a kid playing. Like, it takes a village. So if you got a neighbor down the road that's playing, let's pull up and watch him play. that gives kids, coaches, it gives everybody a sense of community. That way we all pulling the rope in the same direction.
I completely agree, right? Like, I definitely feel you because I'm thinking about, like, even at my youth, it's like it was still community.
Right.
It was heavily like ran with the community being involved.
Right.
I think about like my dad coaching before he had kids,
Right.
And stuff like that. But it's like all of that, I don't see it as much now. But also what I think I realize more now too is that we don't find coaches to be as credible as they were when we were younger.
That's very true. There's no old guard. I mean, Mr. Lewis Jameson for me was, he was the coach. You know what I mean? Charles Ed Highsmith. Those guys were, because I would always go to them, even with my dad being a coach, I would always go to them. Hey, Mr. Highsmith, how you doing? I would always make sure I spoke and I would listen to them coach their teams because they were, Charles Ed. I'm not sure Charles Ed's age before he passed, but I'm pretty sure him and my dad were close in age. But Mr. Lewis was always the old guard. Mr. Lewis was baseball 101. Like, he's, to me, in this city, baseball royalty.
Right.
So, like, the middle tier, it just didn't exist. So now you got people just coaching. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I've seen some people coaching, and you don't have to be the greatest player to coach. Most of the time, it's the guys that weren't the greatest players coaching that are able to communicate to the children better. But it just, for some reason, didn't get passed down from one generation to the next for some reason. And that's something that I'm really unsure as to how that disconnect happened. You know what I mean?
That makes perfect sense.
I mean, it could be something, that's something I probably need to talk to my pops about because he probably knows, hey, what happened in this gap? You know what I mean? Because as I started introducing my son to baseball, I would go to a park and I'm like, who is that coach? Like, who is this guy? Like, who is that guy? When you once upon a time, you knew that's so and so. Those colors, that uniform on that field, that's Mr. Lewis's team. Like, that's so and so's team. So I'm unsure as to where that disconnect happened, but man, we need to fix it.
No, seriously, I definitely agree because I've played around with coaching with the youth for quite a few years now, and I was like kind of in and out, and I'm like, I have a hard time with kind of being in that atmosphere for one because I'm so passionate about the sport, and I mean, like how I kind of grew up in sports as far as like that's all I did.
That was it.
So I'm very passionate, and so I don't see a lot of that passion in the sports now. So what do you feel like was beneficial? Like you said, you had those gurus, like baseball gurus who know the sport in and out, like can actually, and they know the community in and out. So it was easier. And with speaking with Sheikah Taylor, we talked about that, where the coaches don't take the opportunity to really understand the players now.
Yeah.
So what do you feel was beneficial for you coming up as a baseball player? And what do you feel like could have been better for you to be able to go further with baseball?
Going further was me. I was lazy, like totally. Like I'll admit it now, but I didn't understand work ethic back then because the game was fun. I loved playing. Baseball to me has always been my safe haven. So anytime, now of course at 14, 15, 16, life is not. But you got stuff on your head, stuff on your heart, anytime I stepped in between those white lines, it's gone. It doesn't exist for at least a couple of hours, hour and a half, however long the game lasts. Whatever that issue is, it doesn't exist. That girl that turned me down at the lockers the other day, she ain't out here. Like that was always my safe haven. And I never even put together in my head, hey, if I work harder at this, I can go to the next level. I never even, until I was a junior, I never even considered playing college ball. Wow. I was just playing baseball. So, and I'll say I didn't get the knowledge, but I also didn't seek it. So it's it's twofold. You know what I mean? I didn't go after, and that was me not being intuitive enough to say, hey, how far can I take this thing? I was just in the moment playing ball. I soaked up, like I said, even the years I didn't make All-Stars, I would go to All-Star practices and watch and listen. One, because I love being at the ball field. Even if I'm not playing, I love being here. Two, half the team are my guys. Like, you know what I mean? If I didn't make the All-Star team, I got 2 or 3 teammates on that All-Star team. So I'm here hanging out with my guys. Guess what? You need an extra outfielder because somebody didn't show up? I got you, coach. You know, so I got to listen to whoever made All-Stars, whoever was coaching All-Stars for the better part of the 12, 13 years of City League. I was there. So I got to listen to other coaches' coaching style. I listened to how other coaches coached, this kid. Like, hey, he getting a little bit more out of him than such and such got out of it. Like, that's how you learn, oh, okay, be a little harder on this kid because he reacts to it. This kid needs a hug and a pat on the butt.
Right.
So every kid is different. And part of that is knowing the community also. Hey, I can push because I know his daddy or I know his mom and I know he's going to want him pushed. This kid, I don't really know so well. Let me, go with kid gloves with this kid until I meet and know his mama say, hey, now if I hear mom on the sideline, it's me and as I'm helping my son's team. If I hear mom on the sideline, oh, so you ain't running. Now I know, okay, I can push him a little bit.
Yeah.
I can push him a little bit. If mama's a little more quiet or dad is a little more quiet, they ain't saying much, I'm gonna go with kid gloves until I get, a little clearer on. And it's funny with little bitty kids. They all got their own little personalities. So, some kids you can kick them in the butt a little bit. Say, hey, come on, man, I need you to do a little bit better. Other ones will say, hey, man, we got dumb in the dugout. High five. I see you in a minute.
Right, absolutely. I definitely.
Every experience is different.
And you said something that was really important. It kind of like it triggered a thought in my head. And you said that when you were playing, that you would hang out, like even if you didn't make the All-Star team, you would hang around. So if something happened, hey, I'm here, I'm readily available, and you're soaking up the information. And that brought me to a thought of I don't see that anymore. Because I was like, oh, okay. Because like you said, we used to just hang out at the park, just being there. And even
they dropped us off.
And there we go. Yeah, you're there all day. It's like
if you think about it, it wasn't the safest thing to do when you think about it in today's terms. But they would drop us off and say, call me when you're ready to come home. And at that time, you had pay phones and, somebody in the neighborhood had a phone.
But even then, phones weren't even as readily available. But that's the community piece that, we had that community.
Somebody going to bring your butt to the house. Somebody on your street is at that park and say, that little boy need to be home. Come on, get in the car.
Come on, get in the car. Right, absolutely. And I don't see the kids doing that. Just hanging out and soaking up more information.
Yeah, we live in such a polarized, a different community now anyway with phones, and we got our phones and social media, and it's so it's kind of hard to compare because they have so many more options of things to do than we did. But at the same time, like, get out there and get dirty. You know what I'm saying? But bruise your knee up a little bit. You'll be okay. Promise.
Do you think that when parents get involved, right, when their kids are not playing, do you think that's more of like a parent getting in the way of coaching? Or do you think there's a fine line of when it's like a legitimate, like a parent needs to step in?
Yeah, that's a touchy because I think every parent should be involved. But at the same time, you got to let a coach. There was times where I felt like I was better than a kid playing in front of me. There was times I knew I was better than a kid playing in front of me. But the coach has got to coach. Now, coach might not be a very good coach. So sometimes the coach might need to be called out on not being a very good coach. And especially if the team is not performing well. If the team is not performing and we believe we can shake some things up by switching this kid or that kid out, that coach needs to be able to see that. And if he can't see it, somebody on the sideline needs to tap coach on the shoulder and say, hey, coach, I believe such and such can give us a spark here. I believe such and such, can be an opportunity to help us win ball games because that's what it's supposed to be about. Winning ball games, teaching children. teach children first, the winning will come. If you teach it the right way, the winning will come. So it's a community. It takes us all to say, hey, listen, one parent, okay, two parents, okay. Now if it's 3 or 4 parents that think, hey, coach might not be doing the right thing here, coach should probably step to the parents and say, hey guys, I'm trying my best here. What do you believe we can do better?
Mm-hmm.
What do you think? Now he might not take all of that information and use it, but at least you have that information on what the parents think. Because if you stay ready, you don't have to get ready.
That part right there.
So the more information you get, you can use it to your advantage. Like, hey, how do you know a kid played third base 3 games in a tournament 2 years ago? A 10, 11, 12-year-old kid probably don't forgot he played third base. He had that experience, But or he might not feel comfortable telling coach, hey, I'm okay at this, But mama remembers because, that ball hit her baby's foot. And, he was limping around and she was worried about him the rest of the weekend, All of that information helps the team. And you got to be willing to accept information to help your squad, And at the same time, parents, you gotta be wanting to help, give that information, but you also got to take a step back at times and say, I'm not the coach, but hey, coach, here's this information. Now use it as you may. But I know my conscience is clear, my hands are clean. I told him what would help.
So I had a parent that would say, she stated that she thinks that Black boys have a hard time with playing baseball within the schools, that they're maybe not given the opportunity the same opportunity as maybe, the count, they have everything they need to be able to play, like they're not failing in their academics,
right,
but they're not being played. And so she was stating that her response, she went to the coach to have the conversation.
Right.
She was like, well, she felt that he tried to intimidate her by bringing in like the school board, principal, all these things, right? And then at the same time, you have the feedback of, well, she was shouting racial slurs at the coach, right? So there's like this, what's the fine line, right? Yeah. And so it's like, how do you think this is either an ongoing situation that it actually may be some truth in the fact that Black boys or Black children have a harder time in off sports, outside like football, basketball, or B, it's a situation where the coach coaches?
I think that's a loaded one. I know. That's a loaded one. Without knowing the details and specifics of that specific situation, I didn't play middle school baseball. And that was one of those situations where I knew I was better than my 6th grade year. I didn't make the team. And the coach at the time had told me, hey man, you're a good ball player. Come back next year, you'll probably make it. At that point, I no longer wanted to play for that coach because I knew at least 4 kids on that team I was better than, and another 2 that I was probably on par with. Mm-hmm. They may have been a little better than me than in certain aspects of the game, but 4 other ones, no. I knew I was better. At that point, I don't trust him. Mm. This is middle school. At that point, I no longer trust you. I'm playing City League. You ain't got to worry about me coming back next year because you don't appreciate what I bring to the team.
My talent.
The atmosphere for our kids playing baseball is a little different now. I found this out doing a little bit of research a couple years ago when I had my kid. The travel and AAU circuit is such now. There's no City League for middle school kids. Like the middle school age kids, there's no City League. So if mom and daddy can't afford to travel, mama can't get on work, daddy can't, whatever, that's one of the reasons that a lot of our kids go to basketball. And guess what? All we needed was a ball and a hoop in your backyard, and we hooped. You know what I mean? You can't do that with baseball. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
You know, we played pitch up in the front yard. Just throw the ball up in there. All we needed was a ball and some grass. You know what I mean? But with baseball, you gotta have so much equipment, so much time. You need so many teammates, so many friends. So once a kid that age gets out about baseball, you get in the routine of doing your other stuff. You know what I mean? I don't think that's good at all. But I don't know. I'm so passionate about baseball. Like I love the game, and to hear the politics of it get in the way of a kid enjoying the game is just nasty. It's just nasty. It shouldn't happen. And like I said, to not speak specifics about this specific situation because I honestly don't know enough about it. Coach got to coach, but at the same time, you got to listen to your parents. Like I said, you got to communicate. This is a communication going back and forth. Like, you know, at some point, grown folks got to be grown, and let's have a conversation. We ain't got to agree with what we got to say. You don't have to agree with what I say. I don't have to do exactly what you're saying, but let's have an adult conversation. Mm-hmm. Clear the air. Have a moderator, whoever needs to be there. Let's clear the air. Leave rooms. I'll shake your hand, and we'll go on. And hopefully, these babies ain't involved in this mess. Like, you know what I mean?
And that's why I wanted to do this, right? Because like you said something very, very important when you said after you didn't make the team, one, you didn't trust the coach because you're like, clearly you don't respect the talent that I really bring to the team because I know I'm better than them. And two, it shifted your perspective of what you wanted to then put your time toward. And so for me as a former athlete, I find it to be the issue with now that's what's happening with this generation, that they're going out for teams or they kind of have this idea of the coach already that's in place. And it's like, he don't fool with us, so I ain't even gonna try out. So my thing is, what would that have been to you had you not been able to do that? Like, right, you had that experience where it changed your focus. Yeah. So had baseball been taken away completely, or had you been on the team and you just had to rise the pine, knowing that you're better, what would that have been like for you?
It would have been devastating. If baseball had been taken away from me altogether, I would have been devastated. Absolutely devastated. And I can't even, it's hard for me to put into words what that would do to me. Like, you know, I rolled a little bench in my days because I made all-star teams that I didn't play very much on. Usually valid because we had some dogs. Like, you know, hey, that guy's a dog. I'm okay with sitting behind him. Let me get my batter to a game. I'm fine. That's a dog over there. And I know he knows if I play him, hey, I got a dog.
Right.
We ride together with this. And a lot of this, to me, from the outside looking in, like I said, I don't know the specifics of this situation. I ain't trying to be disrespectful to anybody. A lot of this is old guard baseball. And the old guard of baseball does not want to let go of the old guard. It's changing just like our society is changing. And the game is going to have to evolve because they're going to force it. Yep. These children enjoy playing the game just like the old guard enjoyed playing the game. They just express it differently. You have to let it go. Now, there are some old head coaches that believe, hey, you wear your cap a certain way, you put your pants on, you do this, you don't. That's going away. I'm going to tell you why. Because we've seen the success of the Latin-born players who play just like children. They cheer, they're excited, they pump their fists, they don't mean it any disrespect, they just grew up in a different culture. And it's the culture of grown men playing a little boy's game. Mm. The old guard baseball is going to have to let go. They're going to force it. You're either going to move or get out of the way because the game is changing and you better change with it, or you'll be in your rocking chair grunting about them young boys pumping their fists on home runs. Because guess what? They're going to do. It's coming.
Absolutely. And it's crazy like you say that because I see that they go away from there. Like they're doing it in City League. You know, that was heavy in softball, right? I remember being at a softball game and they say, y'all be quiet in the dugout. And I was like, what? You what? like, no, that takes away from the whole game.
It bothered us as a kid. We couldn't do it. They wouldn't allow us to do it, but y'all would be on the other field. Well, not y'all, but the girls would be on the other field. Rah, rah. And I was like, we want to do some of that. You know what I mean? Right. But as old guard of baseball, you cheer on your teammates. That's all. You don't chant. You don't yell. That's old guard of baseball. You want your cap forward. You know, that's Ken Griffey Jr. Started wearing his cap backwards. He couldn't do it in a game. They throw it his head. Wow. Like they were willing to risk. Buck Showalter threw at Ken Griffey Jr. because he wore his cap backwards in warm-ups.
Wow.
Like, that's old guard baseball. If we're going to allow you to be in our space, you do it our way. But that's all changed. Just like society, it's all changed. The more Black and Latin-born players we get, the Mookie Bettses, the Fernando Tatises, guess what? These kids see success, and they want to play it out.
Like you said, they see that success, right? They can see this now, right? And so the mother was stating that the athletic director was stating to her, it's not like the boys are playing MLB or like they'll make the major league team. So for me as a coach, former athlete, I'm like, mad disrespect. I'm like, these boys are in middle school. You know, this is not something that we do because, like you said, that's devastating to a child, right? To hear. So I'm gonna leave that there, and I'm gonna leave that at a cliffhanger, right? Because like we just had this whole conversation about baseball and the development in the direction that it's going in. So we now know that these things are changing, and there's a space for and there's room for these kids to grow. So I'm gonna shift the energy, right?
What's up?
So the next, though, I want to go into after high school ball. Did you play did you play any sports continuing after that?
Oh no. I may have hooped a little bit at the YMCA, you know. That's actually where I learned about work ethic. Like my pops was like, if you'd have went and ran and lifted weights at the YMCA when you were playing ball, you'd still be playing somewhere. But like I said, hindsight 2020. No, not until a couple years after I graduated. I had some friends reach out, slow pitch softball. Mm-hmm. So that's when I got into the softball community, and honestly, I just got out of it a couple years ago. So we're talking about close to 20 years of 2 or 3 nights a week and every weekend at a ball field.
So, I already know. I remember spending lots of nights out there.
Yeah.
So what has that experience been like with, like, you know, saying, okay, I'm going to finally lay down my cleats. I'm going to finally lay down the glove. What has that experience been like? Because I know that for me, that's been a challenge of being like, it's time to like hang them up and move into a new phase.
Yeah. It's when Springfield canceled the men's league down here 4 years ago. I don't remember exactly. When they canceled the league, initially, I wasn't terribly upset about it. I had a few opportunities. I got plenty of friends that still play that invited me. So I played a few tournaments on weekends. My son was a little bitty at the time, so I didn't feel comfortable leaving the missus at the time at home with a baby till 10 p.m. while I'm playing softball in the middle of the week. I would play some tournaments on weekends. So it kind of, for a year or a year and a half, it kind of, you know, gave me that, it scratched that itch a little bit. But I was lucky, blessed, honestly, to be able to transition right into my son. So I only really had about a year and a half, 2 years where he wasn't playing, where he was too young to play. But I've been in the yard with him since he could walk, pitching a ball, hitting with a bat. So it gives me still that little, you know. Now I didn't get that competition. That competition is a little different. That anxiety right before the game or in the last couple innings, you know, I missed that. But then last year when he started playing, the first inning, my stomach started rumbling, and I was like, "Oh, there it is."
He's coming back because he's growing. He's getting older.
Yeah. So I've been blessed to not have to do without it for a super long time, and I'm so attached to the game. I'll pull up to. I might be in Goodlettsville, and I'll just pull up to the ball field and watch.
Just watch,
because I mean, I just love ball.
No,
I don't got to know who you kids are. I'll just watch ball. You know? So I've pulled up to the high school oftentimes.
Gotcha.
That's what led me to start asking questions.
Mm.
I pulled up to when I was younger, there were a lot of us black kids playing, but once we got into middle school age, a lot of them didn't play. You know, it was something to do, you know, and they didn't really care about baseball as much as I did. A few of us did. But this era of kids, and even the kids now that have graduated, there's a lot more of them being a lot more successful. So I noticed it. I know, hey, that's so and so's track. Wow, that's, you know, because I'm always at the ballpark. I may only be there 15, 20 minutes, but every year I'm at the ballpark a few times. So I always remember, hey, that's so and so kid. You know, let me go over and watch him play. You know, I went to a high school game. Like I said, my kid was little bitty. So had it been 4 years ago, maybe 5, and I was watching the team play. Beautiful day, and I'm just relaxing, watching the team play at the new ball field, and I'm thinking, man, this is gorgeous.
Why wasn't this here when I was here?
Precisely, exactly what I said. I said, man, I would have loved to play out there. That's gorgeous. But as I'm watching, I noticed it. There's no black kids on the team. Now, this was 4 or 5 years ago. And I looked and I thought, man, I was one. Biffy Jones played after basketball season. He would come on the baseball team and play. So we would, you know, the two. Everybody else focused on basketball and football. That was good. Dutta, Philip Black. They all, once we got to high school, like, hey, man,
I'm cool with baseball.
Baseball play. Really good. Both of them. Really good. I can't. Philip was a 5-star baseball player. He could do it all. He was a 5-tool baseball player. He could do it all. Anyway, but I noticed there are no black kids on this team. And I thought, wait a minute. I've been at the ballpark seeing these little, you know, little beautiful brown boys playing baseball. There should be at least a couple on this team. Then I thought about the politics of it. That's when it led me to there's no middle school city league. When I found that out, that's when I was like, oh, you mix that with the politics, it makes perfect sense. Makes perfect sense.
Because they don't want the middle schoolers playing city league ball. They're even doing that in basketball. And I've had coaches say, no, they don't want them playing city league even after the season ends, because a lot of the city league goes on after their season ends, right? But they're like, no, they don't want them playing to risk them getting hurt. As a parent, as a former player, as a coach myself, I cannot stand it, right? Because I'm like, ridiculous. Honestly, the kids have learned so much more in city league, in my experience, just being a spectator.
In this sport, repetition is better than what you expect. Okay, so you want them to go, you don't want them to play, like get that competition of seeing, hey, guess what? My kid's not very good at hitting left-handers. Guess what? He ain't gonna get better until he hits left-handers. What? Not this. It's the politics of it, and it's money, and it's nasty. Like, how am I gonna get better at catching ground balls if I'm not catching ground balls? Oh, but are you okay with me catching ground balls on my own? Who gonna hit me ground balls on my own? I don't get the logic behind not allowing kids to play. Right. And like I said, it's about big business. And
so you say the community leaders are definitely running the team, not the community, but the leaders, whoever is putting the money into these sports, that's who's dictating and controlling these teams. Would you say that?
That's how I feel. Now, I don't have the information to back that up, but I find it hard to believe you aren't letting kids that you really don't know play wherever they want to play, whenever they want to play, because you fear for their well-being. Don't really make sense. Because guess what? You ain't worried about Johnny hurting his leg on a skateboard. You ain't got to know skateboarding rule. You ain't got to know bicycle rule, but you got to know playing the sport that I play rule. I don't understand it. And if I'm speaking out of turn, so be it. I don't really care. But I'm just saying, Johnny's not going to be a better third baseman between the end of your season and the start of next season if he doesn't get to play.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I don't understand how you making your program better that way. All he can do is, and I know high school does. I'm not unsure about middle school, but they got a time where you can't even be with your coach hitting. And you can feel
the dead period. Yeah.
Exactly. You can feel, but you can't. You ain't supposed to be with your coach and hit. Well, if I'm trying to get better, what am I supposed to do? Like, I got to go pay a trainer and go in his pole barn, and But that's yes.
And they go into politics.
The money is, mom and daddy might not have the money to pay the trainer. You know what I mean? Like, but guess what? We can throw this game together. Guess what? This team down around the corner need a second baseman this week, and I'm available. It's messy. I'm sure I'll learn more about it soon as my child gets a little older. I'll probably be raising some cane. But
speaking of, right? I was leading into this.
Segue. Segue.
So speaking of, do you think that you would that you're going to actually put your son to have your son play baseball here at Springfield, or do you see yourself moving him to another school to be able to have that backing to push him further?
I don't know. I'm torn, honestly, because my experience was so different. I would hope for him to be able to get that, but at the same time, I know he lives in a different Springfield than I grew up in.
Mm-hmm.
I'm luckily he's 6, right. So we got a little time to to decide some of the more important things of where he goes and plays ball and such. I'm kind of a yellow jacket, you know what I mean? Like I'm a yellow jacket through and through. But at the same time, I have information. We have information that our parents didn't necessarily have.
Absolutely.
Or at the time, some of the information they had, they shielded us from it because they loved us and they didn't want us to, have to worry and burden with those things. And I'm middle of the road on all of that. Like, I want him to know some things that I wasn't able to know, but at the same time, it's my job as a daddy to protect him.
Yes.
So we'll see. I mean, I'm not definitive on anything, but if things stay the way they stay, this boy loves ball. Like he's got the bug just like I had. So hopefully, the arrow clear and the sun will come up, and
it'll be smooth sailing.
Yeah, it'll be smooth sailing. But we'll just see. I don't know.
So say your son hears this, we'll say 7 years from now, right? Puts him at teenager years.
Right.
What advice would you give him as a baseball player and going forward in that career?
Live your truth. Don't let anyone take it from you. Just like you do now, wear your heart on your sleeve. And when you step over that white line, all dog. Don't leave anything on the field. Leave it all out there and go home knowing you gave everything you had. If that ain't enough to get the win or to make the team, you left it all out there. And I can respect it. Period.
That's good right there. Man, that's all I got. I appreciate you so much for coming on here with me.
Thank you. I mean, I know I ran a little bit and I kind of but I'm a talker. So
me too.
You've been doing this for 30 years. You know what I'm saying?
I think it was something on the street.
Yeah, some on Highland Street. Yeah, they had the water pipes or something. So we all chatted.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely appreciate that, and I hope some younger Black boys, but Hispanic boys, just absolutely. Younger kids, parents, coaches can hear this and have a shift in perspective around this whole energy and everything going forward.
Yeah, if I said anything disrespectful, I didn't mean it. Hit my DMs.
Yeah, you did. You said what you said.
Y'all know me, so hit my DMs. We'll talk it out. It is what it is.
There's no disrespect. This is a safe space, like I said, and that's what I try to, and that's what I want.
I'm gonna tell you what I feel. I'm gonna hug you when it's over. It's like, hey, I love you.
I'm sorry I hurt your feelings. You're gonna hug.
Yeah, I got you. I meant it, but I ain't mean it.
All righty, let's close out of here. Hey, Tamika, thank you so much for joining me. If you don't mind, you can go ahead and share this too.